In June 1940, the Battle of France collapsed into total chaos. Caught in the center of the Allied retreat at Saint-Valery-sur-Somme was Gunner Duncan Mclean, a soldier with the Royal Regiment of Artillery. For soldiers swept up in the German advance, capture meant immediate exile. They were packed into cattle cars and transported hundreds of miles east, deep into hostile territory and far from the shifting front lines. They were deposited into the Polish and German stalags. In these freezing, heavily guarded enclosures, the vast majority of prisoners adopted a single, pragmatic strategy: passive survival. You kept your head down and you waited for the war to end. Maclean refused to treat his camp as a holding cell. He decided to turn his captivity into a one-man war of resistance. Within months of his arrival, Maclean began trading the predictable safety of the barracks for the lethal variables of a breakout. This map of Eastern Europe shows where Maclean initiated his first strike in April 1941, Stalag XX1B in Poland. Assigned to a working party, he slipped away. Relying on pure psychological bluffing, he put on stolen railway worker clothes, strapped on a swastika armband, and confidently boarded a civilian train at Posen. The disguise worked well enough to get him deep into Warsaw, but the bluff eventually collapsed. He was cornered on the street and arrested by elite SS troops. Because he was caught operating outside of his military uniform, the SS stripped away his prisoner of war protections. They brutally interrogated him as an active enemy spy. The rules of his captivity had changed. He now knew that a second breakout attempt wouldn't just risk a beating, it carried the very real threat of execution. 18 months later, in November 1942, Maclean moved again. During a blinding blizzard at Stalag XX1D, he manually cut his way through the perimeter wire and threw himself onto a slow-moving train. Tracking his route, we see him ride out of Poland into Germany. He jumped off in Hannover, dodging pursuing guards through the city. Exhausted, he boarded another train, pushing further west toward Brussels. But he contracted a severe case of dysentery. The infection ravaged his body, sapping his strength entirely, until he was finally captured at Tenno on December 20th. He had evaded capture for 6 weeks, but every mile gained was a calculation against his own physical decay, a test of how far he could push a body failing from infection before the guards caught up. By May 1944, the Nazi regime was fracturing. The transport of prisoners shifted from standard logistics to highly dangerous militarized operations. While being relocated on a heavily armed transport train, Maclean made his third attempt. He suddenly leapt from the moving rail car at 20 miles per hour, dodging active gunfire from the guards. He survived the fall and secured a stolen Luftwaffe uniform, bluffing his way as far as the region of Diana before the SS caught him and locked him up again. His fourth bid for freedom came in January 1945. As prisoners were forced into the freezing temperatures of the Upper Silesian Death March, Maclean broke away into the snow. He managed to hide in the brutal winter conditions for 2 full months. As the war ground to a halt, his actions stripped away the illusion of a calculated escape. In the snows of Eastern Europe, it was raw, desperate animal survival. He was recaptured one final time, but he had stalled the clock long enough. In May 1945, advancing Allied forces finally liberated him. Looking at this map of Europe, we can see the sheer scale of his resistance. Over 5 years, he traversed thousands of miles, striking out across 4 distinct routes and surviving multiple high-security stalags. Maclean's record lacks the neat conclusion of a Hollywood movie. He never successfully made it home under his own power. Every single attempt ended in recapture. Gunner Duncan Mclean's legacy rests in that repeated cycle of defiance. By forcing his captors to hunt him down over and over again, he proved that an indomitable will can force an enemy to fight for every mile of their own territory.